Hey everybody, and welcome to the Gavel Strikes, our lucky seventh
episode, lucky number 7.
Nice. I'm Brian Wiedman,
And I'm Xavier Chavez.
and thanks for joining us. We have a great show for you. Hopefully, we always do.
Always.
We like bringing you new stuff. I actually had a hard time picking out things this week because I try to show, at least on the comic end, things that people haven't seen or don't see very often. But it's always easy to bring the AF-15s and the Hulk 181s. But it took me a while to pick things out today.
I went through the art side twice to pick out certain different things. Like I said, different artists, not big names.
Things we do for you guys. so I guess we're going to jump right into it, right?
Yeah, and, like we always do.
So. X, why don't you go ahead and start with the art? And guys, if you have questions for us, we're always here for you.
Yes.
You can either type in live. We'll try and answer best we can. Otherwise, you can always leave a comment or email us directly.
Yep, and we'll do our best to answer your question as soon as possible. So first off, again,
gotta roll the sleeves up. I like that.
So I've been doing strips since it's one of the oldest art forms of comics that we have. So if not the oldest. And I have a new and an old strip. There's these newer strips by Scott Nichol, and he's always using either Star Wars or superheroes in the jokes. And they're always in a group lot. They're never single, at least not yet. And they have great, I think they're great jokes. So this one, again, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, and he's saying, it's cool, I shave my armpits too. And over here we have the Joker, and I thought your arch enemy. I thought I was your arch enemy, but now I hear from the Penguin that you said the Riddler is your arch enemy. Dun dun dun.
Drama, pure drama. I actually like these. I've seen these before,
Yes.
and I like them because of the themes. Very reasonably priced for comic art.
Yes.
They're not on Bristol board though, right?
No, they're on
sort of.
They're on artboard. They're not on Bristol board, but they're on artboard. And again, like I said, we've had Star Wars in the past. It always relates to a superhero type genre. So
these are a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I like these a lot. I've always liked them because of that.
Yes.
They make fun of a lot of things,
And
that's cool because if we can't laugh at ourselves, if we can't laugh at ourselves, who can we laugh at?
And again,
I laugh at X all the time.
So, and here we have an alley-oop by Vt Hamlin. And again, a great piece. Look at the cross-hatching and the detail on this first panel and in the last panel. You got a great close-up. And just, again, and this one particularly, because not all of them have beautiful Cableman. So,
I have to say, one of the things you kind of brought to my attention, I guess I should say, is the amount of work something like this shows. So you've got when we say cross-hatching, all this individual detail, like you see near the dinosaur on the lower, on the left, and the trees, and all that detail is something that takes an insane amount of time to do.
Yes.
And think about these guys; they're spitting out of these, these out one a day, and they're putting that much detail into this to make it look so deep, so cool.
Again, look at the shadowing on the palm trees. Look at the detail on his leopard skin clothing, and the shadowing, the line work on her dress, the line work in his underwear. It's just incredible. And again, going back to how long some of this takes, I'll follow artists, and you can. Again, a lot of people can follow artists on Facebook or Instagram and stuff like that. One of the particular people I follow is Greg Capullo. And Greg Capullo will show a lot of the time his work progress and what he's done in the day, take pictures of the penciling and stuff like that. And so, him being fast, and imagine the detail that Capullo does in his work. It takes him a day to do a page. And that's a good standard. That's actually a fast standard in the industry to make a page in a day. So he's done other pages or a cover that you'll see him do, and it'll take a day and a half, 2 days, maybe even more. Paulo Rivera, that's a watercolor painter. I have his 50th anniversary Daredevil cover. It took him a week to do that. So it all depends on the medium, and it all depends on how fast the artist is working and how much detail he's putting into the artwork. So
Amazing.
Again, this piece is incredible. So
Yeah, and I'll show you a sneak peek later on of detail.
and I'll show you a sneak peek later on of an oil work. So
Yeah,
an
it's
oil
great.
with acrylic. So here we have DC's Who's Who page, and this one is again Vicky Vale. We all love Batman's women, and this one has a great scene, Gotham City scene in the background. Bruce Wayne with her, Batman right here in the film strip. Great, again, all, complete. And this was a page from Who's Who, done by Steve Beauvais in 1989, and just a great piece. Again, very affordable art. Pieces, I think this one currently is under $100 still. So again, just beautiful artwork for for what I would think is an insanely cheap price. So,
and this is going off tonight.
yes,
So
all of this except the last 3 pieces are being sold.
except the sneak peeks that we show
Yes.
you are going to be this week, tonight,
Tonight,
starting at
yes.
6 o'clock. So
6,
don't
yes.
miss those, because if you really are interested in something like this,
And
start bidding on it now. Don't wait.
And that's another thing. Since his last name, we go by last name, so it's a B. It starts at 6. So if you're not there and you want to follow it or you want to bid on it, I always suggest bid on the first at least 5 or 6 letters early on, and then
Right.
if you're gonna be watching the auction live, you know you have some time. But A and B go by very, very quickly.
Yeah, don't miss it. We never want you to miss anything.
Here is a Matt Baker piece that was done by Bill Black. Matt Baker didn't really have anything to do with this piece. It's kind of a recreation from Page. It's Jungle Girls #5, Tiger Girl. And again, it's just a gorgeous page. Look, again, the Bill Black did a great Matt Baker-like woman. The tiger,
God,
the
it
detail,
looks so much like his faces.
and the faces,
Yeah.
exactly. So again, a great piece when you can't really find or get a Matt Baker. Can you imagine how much this would be as a Matt Baker? You're talking about $10,000-$15,000 plus. But again, this piece is reasonably affordable, a great piece, and just a great piece to have on your wall frame. So
I like that.
yeah, I know you would. Again, newer piece, Ultimate Electra from the Ultimate series. This one has Electra fighting Bullseye, which great action scene. And again, under $200 currently, by Salvador La Roca, inked by Mickey, which is a very famous inker in the industry. He's inked Quesada after Palmiotti and a lot of other great names. And again, just a awesome piece with great action, great shadowing, and again, under $200. Who wouldn't want an Electra fighting a Bullseye, basically? The guy that's been a rivalry since the beginning. So here we have another newer page, and this one I particularly brought again a newer artist, Kano. He did a Daredevil issue that I actually have 2 pages from and stuff like that. But this is from Immortal Iron Fist, and I brought this along because the Immortal Iron Fist storyline I was reading when it came out, and I thought it was again a great storyline. Not that long. They found basically the dimension or the other portal to one of the oldest places, and then they eventually go to Hell, where the first Iron Fist is there, and they fight together to conclude the story. But this is just a great piece where Danny's not actually in the fight; he's just cheering for somebody else. So,
explain to people who don't know, because a lot of people do, but some people don't. Why do they use blue lines versus pencils or other things?
So again, blue lines are started to be. They've always kind of used blue lines, and some artists use a red line. Chris Ware, particularly his earlier pieces, had a red line, and you'll see pieces with a hard red or a hard marker line, and they'll say remove this line in printing or something like that. It's just sometimes it's a separator for the colorist and stuff like that. But particularly blue lines, they use a lot, and McFarlane used it a lot in his artwork. Was it doesn't come up when you copy or scan the piece, and it's a great way to do the preliminary work. You can see body detail and stuff like that, and then as they pencil it or sometimes they just use the blue line and ink over it. They just finalize and finish the piece up and put more detail. As you can see, sometimes with just a crowd, like here it's just lines, whereas here you can actually see faces and stuff like that.
And so because they inked it, that will show up. And then
yes,
the blue lines, they didn't even have to spend time erasing it.
them.
They just left it there because it won't show up on production.
And that's why they also do now digital blue line and stuff like that. It's the same thing. It won't show up in production once it's scanned or copied.
Gotcha.
So.
Great information.
Yeah. Here we have a Steve Dillon Hellblazer piece. And again, Steve Dillon is one of those artists that did a lot of work. He was his art style is very distinct to him. He did The Punisher, he did Hellblazer, he did Preacher, and this is one of his pieces. Again, very reasonable for a Steve Dillon piece from the Hellblazer series, and just a great piece with great line work. Again, you'll see the heavy shading, and unfortunately, Steve was one of those artists that passed young, and we don't have much art from him anymore. So the stuff that does come out, particularly Preacher, that is a highly collectible storyline from him, and the Punisher series. He also did Wolverine, where Damon came out, and the Blood Sword. So
to give you a general idea of kind of how good these guys affect our imagination, Tommy, can you go to this first panel, this top panel? If you really look at that top panel, there's a window behind them, and our minds fill that in. But with just this little bit of line work in the shading, the way they did, it's reflecting, and our minds fill that in. That's how good these artists are. They can get us to imagine something just by drawing a line somewhere. That to me has always blown me away. It's not so much the foreground items, but the background items.
And it's also, again, the use of different markers. Again, I don't think this is fading particularly. It's just the way that they did the depth for the city in the background and stuff like that.
Right.
So
absolutely stunning.
So again, great pieces. And again, here's an older piece, piece of Warlord art. Great piece with what we call like a quarter splash of the hero Warlord coming through the panels. Great confrontational action and then fighting. And again, on the steps, if I'm not mistaken, this is Mike Grell.
Grell and Colletta.
Yeah, Grell and Colletta. And again, everybody says that Vince Colletta sometimes wasn't the best inker. Again, with Thor and Kirby, we spoke about this in another podcast. Again, right here, look at the his line work with on Grell. I think it's just as good as Grell would have done in it. So great shadowing there with the faces. Again, just a great page and affordable hero page. So, and finally, that brings us to an illustration piece. I brought this because we have
in this illustration auction, or is
no. So illustration, sometimes they don't have weeklies like we do, and so a lot of the time we'll have illustration pieces or pulp pieces in our auction, Men magazine pieces, and those people that like them, again, most of the time they're pretty affordable. This I brought in because we have been selling a lot of Robert Peake from his collection. And they've been breaking records, particularly the movie posters. And this is a penciled preliminary of a very famous Robert Peake piece. And I brought this particularly also because it has everybody. It has, again,
the Marx Brothers.
Everybody. Great detail. Great, almost like Hollywood 20s and 30s era. Big and great line work. Again, very 80s pop looking. So
this is a great piece.
Yeah,
if you like,
and this is again a preliminary.
Yeah,
so.
if you like old time movies, things like that, this is the piece for you, because this has so many things, even things I can't name. You've got Laurel and Hardy, you've got the Marx Brothers. Those are the obvious ones to me. But then you've got all these things in here that I'm sure are
famous people,
all famous pieces. Maybe that's Gone with the Wind, possibly.
Yeah, that's definitely Clark Gable.
And then you've got, all these others that I don't know. They're just absolutely stunning.
This might be Frank Sinatra.
It might be.
So,
absolutely. Audrey Hepburn, maybe. I love
So,
it. It's
again,
absolutely a great piece.
Great illustration piece, great piece to see the artist's process before he finished the painting.
Mhm.
And again, more affordable than you will be able to find one of his actual printed or published
And the
movie
main
stuff.
illustration auction is actually going on right now.
Yes.
So don't miss that, because
Oh, because that has a bunch
I'm
of his
actually
pieces
going
as well.
through, I've gone through that. I go through it every time and just cry, because there's, Vargas pieces I love, Elfgren pieces I love.
I really want that Nagel.
There's Nagels. I mean, Lord, the beautiful art that's in that sale that Todd and Ed and Megan McMillan put together, just absolutely beyond belief at how good those pieces are. If you like pinup stuff, there is by far no better place to go.
And pulp also, because
and pulps,
the pulp covers Elgren and stuff like that.
If you like that stuff, gorgeous. So head over to the illustration. I mean, don't just stick with comics. We got 40 other departments. There's always something for everybody.
And like I said, every weekly you might find an illustration piece in there or two, or a pulp piece or men's magazine piece.
Yeah, you never know. I actually looked those men's magazine pieces. They're kind of neat.
Yeah, they're very nice. And then behind that we have our sneak peeks. So
we'll do sneak peeks after this.
So
we're gonna hide those from you for now. So on to what would Wiedman want? I like that. I don't know why. Now that I say it and he coined it, I got to keep going with it.
My list. Stanleyisms.
So, like I said, I had a hard time bringing stuff today. So I was trying to figure out, there really wasn't a theme. I just kind of brought some books that I thought were really neat. And then, so the first one, everything else is slabbed, but this first one is a strange fantasy. And it's got a reflection cover, and a lot of people do themed. Why is that? Oh, no, because it's the computer dummy. A lot of people do themed comic books, and as you can see, this is a reflection cover. And I always thought that reflections were harder to draw in my personal head than anything else, because you had to mirror image something so closely. And you had to get the angles right, and you had to do that. So I've always thought that reflection covers were some of the coolest covers.
But
this being one of them. But when they change it,
that's great.
And it's even better like this, or even like the Chamber of Chills 19 through the glass. The skeleton through the glass. I really like things like that. I think they're really unique to that comic book artist, and I think they do such a good job. Seeing what we didn't know was there. I've always thought that was cool. On to the next book, and I have to tell you, this is in my top 5 covers. Did you know that? Of all things.
Well, again,
Secret Wars.
A lot of Hulk fans love that cover.
Secret Wars #4. This has been sold, and if I ever find who has this,
it's going to cost you. Yeah,
I'm never going to be able to afford it.
It's going to cost you so much.
This book is one of my favorite covers, and it's because he's beneath 150 billion tons stands the Hulk, and he's not happy. I don't know what it is, but when I first, when I was growing up, I had to go back and find Secret Wars so I could find out how Spider-Man got his black costume. And when I did that and I saw this book, I immediately started laughing. I immediately loved the book, and it became my favorite series of all time. So this has actually spurred me getting X-Men. This got me into the whole Marvel universe outside of Spider-Man. This single cover changed it. Now, #3 is the one where Spider-Man fights X-Men, and that just blew my mind. And so I needed to know more about Colossus and Wolverine and all, Rogue and all those guys that I didn't know before. But this cover is what cinched it for me. Loved it. Ever since then, I have been a comic book freak.
And this also goes to the Hulk annual #1 where he's the
Steranko cover. So that to me is my that is it. I have a good list up there of my highest covers and everything, and I don't collect comics much anymore. I'm not really collecting comics because of this guy right here. I'm dealing more in artwork and animation. And by the way, speaking of animation and the animation auction, everybody who just outbid me on every single thing that I wanted this weekend, I would like to say you're not my favorite person in the world anymore. Just saying.
You got outbid on everything?
I only got 3 items, and
Okay.
I bid on 25.
Okay.
I put in $12,000 worth of bids and barely got any. I was not a happy person. I was really bummed by Monday.
Well,
I was crushed.
again, the Cowboy Bebop cell that I wanted went crazy. So crazy.
You wanted 1. I wanted 25 and
Yeah.
couldn't get any of them. It was ridiculous. Not very happy. I like animation cells. So I'm buying animation cells because I like them. I can hang them on the wall. There's more things to do. You know, I can just enjoy them as opposed to putting them in my closet.
And it's like a comic where you're like the animation, the comic book. It's like you can say this is the page, where the animation you can be like go to the movie or the TV show.
Exactly.
And it's just like, oh, stop. You can actually pause, and it's just like that's the scene.
That's the scene. That's mine.
Yeah.
I own that. And you know, and each one is slightly different.
Yeah.
So they are one of a kind. But that's my own personal preference. There's still thousands and thousands of comic book people out there. So don't think that you need to follow me. We don't want you to be like me or be like Xavier. We want you to do your own thing. Collect what you love. That's what we tell everybody who asks us, what do you think? Collect what you love, and you never stop doing it.
You're never gonna go wrong, and you're never gonna be unhappy.
So, but that's the reason I started transitioning out of comics, was because I started liking, it started becoming more of a hobby again for me instead of me seeing dollar signs everywhere. And it's very difficult when I see dollar signs for me to want to collect. And so,
especially if those dollar signs goes really high.
Right. And the problem now is comics are so expensive, I can't find what I can afford. That's the other problem. I have a hard time with that. So, and I like the idea of having the only one, even if it is just alternating, just a little bit different. So, next is primer number 2. This is from Comico. This is the first appearance of Grendel. And we got to say, these books are rare because there are only a few thousand of them that we're aware of.
Yeah, they're printed.
And the black cover makes anything above an 8.0, even a 7.0, really very, very difficult to obtain. This is kind of like Usagi Yojimbo or Up 8.0 number 2. This book will continue to surprise people because it's so hard to find. And I think that the harder you look, the harder it's going to be to find them. And then at some point they're going to be out of your control.
It's like
Usagi or Albedo 2 is
the
ridiculous.
Crow.
The Crow is another one.
And the San Diego comic 2.
That's not as difficult to find as you think
Dragon.
It is. Oh, that one?
Yeah.
Not the San Diego comic book number 2 has Hellboy.
There's a Savage Dragon one as well.
Yeah, that one I don't know about. Yeah.
Or I might be mixing them up. So.
Could be. Happens. Wouldn't be the first time, won't be the last.
Yeah, true.
I could be wrong too.
True.
So the next I'm going to a Planet Comics 11, as you can see. And we call these these first 23 rivet covers. And we call them rivet covers because they have rivets in the logo, as you can see, like they were welded together. And the first 23 of the logo have them. They're also the hardest 23 to get. Shocking, right? 1 through 23. And because they are very, very, but Fiction House printed a lot of these. They printed a lot of books. And the simple fact is, for some reason, Planet Comics, Wings, Jumbo Jungle, the paper wasn't as good, especially on the covers, and they did not hold color very well. They did not hold gloss very well. They didn't hold up very well. They get dirty very easily. So finding any of them in any kind of grade is very difficult, especially these rivet covers I know are very desirable. And this is just great. I mean, you got a monster grabbing a girl. You've got the guy shooting, Buck Rogers style, shooting, trying to stop him. That's a great cover. Again, I love it.
My favorite Golden Age series, when I was just finding Golden Age, was always the Planet Comics. And they were always, again, not so difficult to find, but in nice shape. They were always hard to get.
Impossible. Yeah. It's very, very difficult. And so be prepared to pay if you want nice copies. But I have to agree, if there are very, very few runs I would try and complete nowadays.
Yes.
And if I were, Super Mystery would be one of them, because for some reason the Super Mystery covers are kind of like that. They're hard to find. Ace periodicals, I actually got a collection that has a lot of them in there. holy cow, are those books hard to find.
Yeah.
One of them has like 4 or 5 on the census. I mean, just ridiculously low numbers and great covers. And so that would be one. The other one that I really like is crime. I can't remember off the top of my head. I do like Crime Does Not Pay, but that's not it. But Planet Comics, I would be going after, or either Wings or Jumbo Jungle. I love all those covers. They're really good.
I love all the Planet, and then the Timelies. I've always loved Timelies.
Oh, well, Timely's always timely. You
Yeah.
know.
Timeless.
Next book is Batman 189, but is the Latterlappen. It is a Swedish edition. And we tell you this because we've got this, we said this last time, a couple of weeks ago. This isn't our weekly, but we do have an international showcase auction coming up that has some incredibly amazing books in it. And this is the first appearance of Scarecrow, Silver Age appearance of Scarecrow in the Swedish version.
Yep.
And you can see even the colors are a little bit different. And these are, I don't know. I think this is the new frontier with comics.
Well, that's
I really firmly believe
this is the genre that you want to get into with, like what we were saying. I was just like, comics have gotten too expensive, and it's all dollar signs, and it's just like, again, some of these are expensive, but relatively to their American counterparts or whatever, it's not,
pennies on the dollar compared. And personally,
and if you if you notice the UK editions were like this years ago.
They were 40% of what an American version can go for, and now they're actually equal. They're dead equal
they're
right now.
10-15% off sometimes, but yeah,
sometimes. But even as far as 2 years ago, they were still off, and now they're almost dead equal. That is unbelievable. That's how fast people's minds have changed. That these are not, yes, they were printed a month later, but they're not necessarily the same thing. Try and find an Amazing Fantasy 15 in the UK version. Now, I've had a couple of collections come out of the UK, and so I've had them, but really try and find one on your own.
Or high grade.
Good luck. I guarantee you, on the census compared to an American version, 10 to 1. Maybe, and you were lucky to find them.
And like I was saying, high grade almost doesn't exist. For these books. So.
And they have the same problems.
And if you do find them, you can pick it up as fast as you can.
Especially if you've got books from Brazil,
or stuff
which
like
has a rainforest, by the way. Staples rot out of those books so easily.
That's a common issue. Yeah.
Right? Humidity, all this stuff, and they had paper drives, just like we did during the war. I can guarantee you, 1940s, Brazilian or Latin America, South American
Mexico,
books are going to be highly sought after and very, very hard to get.
Extremely rare. That's the one thing.
By all means.
And anything above a 6 is
I think even a 4 or 5 is high grade.
Some of
these, I mean, we were looking at, you have other books, you didn't bring them, but I was oohing it on over them because you guys know I like pre-code horror, but he got a stack of pre-code horror books in of this
from Brazil,
Brazil, and I lost my mind. I'm taking pictures, I'm showing people because these things are so rare. And the covers are so new,
are unique to the country
beyond belief.
They like there was particularly in Brazil there was a guy named Jaime Cortez and another guy which Jaime Cortez taught later on was Pinchado, and they made original horror covers for these comics and stuff like that.
I promise you, if you look at these things, you will not go wrong. You will love looking at them. They are beautiful, and I just don't see them staying low.
And I've actually been able to see 1 or 2 of the originals by Jaime Cortez.
Oh, wow.
And what is very interesting is his use of white to make these ghosts or to make the skeletons or to make the ghouls. It's almost like shades of white, where he can almost make it a little bit transparent at the end where he needs
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You watch November. November is going to be the tale. I'm telling you right now, watch November.
Last week I sent you an Instagram message. See the rest
of so in answer to your question, I don't know. Unfortunately, we
scheduled.
Only see if we see 1% of the auction. So we have a question here. Last week I sent you an IG message on some Action comics from the Forbidden Collection that were auctioned off a few weeks ago. When will we see the rest of the collection? What other titles are there? We don't know. And I hate saying that, but I see 1% of the auction. If I'm lucky, I see 1% of the auction.
And that's the thing. We're not the only people, consignment directors taking in business. The Forbidden Collection was most likely taken in by one of the executives, and we just don't have an inventory list. Sometimes we don't have an inventory list until the stuff starts coming up on the
We're
auction.
very compartmentalized. It's funny. So I get things in. Not many people know what I get in. Xavier gets things in. We sit next to each other, so we show stuff off all the time. But even I don't know what Xavier gets in unless he knows I'm looking at something for somebody else. And then Aaron gets stuff in. Matt Griffin gets stuff in. All these people are bringing things in, and they have promises with their consigners,
and
we just
processed.
Don't see it. Yeah, we don't know. It doesn't come through our hands. So in answer to your question, I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't have an answer to that.
It could also be like sometimes we'll get a collection like the Forbidden Collection, like the Black Cat Collection. It doesn't get sold in one auction. It gets sold in several auctions. It might get sold in 2 years. So
I can't answer your question. I wish I could, but I don't know. I don't know what titles there are. I don't even know, to be honest, I'm not even sure who to ask.
The best thing that I would suggest is to on your Heritage account, you can actually put a want list, and you'll receive notifications every time the Forbidden Collection
that would
up.
be the smartest way to do it. So put the want list in the Forbidden Collection, and anytime that pops up, you will get a notice of all those books.
Of all the books that are coming up. So
okay. What was I saying?
We were talking about the pre-code horror from Brazil.
Oh, well, do I really need to say any more than that? I mean, I want one of those books, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get one now.
We'll see.
Those are some cool books.
We're trying to plan a horror auction of just stuff.
I can promise you, if this November auction takes off like I think it will, and we've gotten some amazing books.
And we're still waiting for some amazing books.
And we're still waiting.
CGC,
I can guarantee you, if this auction does what I think it's going to do, it's the new frontier. People are going to be trying to find, and not every foreign book will be worth something. Yeah. It's just like the American counterparts. It's got to be a key. It's got to be 1940s, or it's got to be a key book outside of the 1940s.
It's got to be a key. One of the things that most of the big pocket collectors look for is closest printing to original printing.
There you go.
So, for example, the action page from the Paquito that we have in the sale was printed 3 months after Action 1. It's the earliest publication outside of the U.S. for Action 1. So those are the things like the second or third publication after that, it'll still be looked at by collectors, especially in different countries. But once you get further and further away from the original printing, then it's not as sought after. Another thing that a lot of these collectors look for is characters of origin country. There's a lot of characters that are superheroes for Brazil. There's superheroes from Australia, and they've never crossed over to America. Mm-hmm. They've never been reprinted or republished. And those are some things like Captain 7 from Brazil. There's another Australian imprint that I have in-house that I can't remember the name of now. But those are the type of things that a lot of the collectors look for. And then on top of all that, rarity. Like the Superman, for example, the Paquito, there's only 3 known examples to exist in the world. That might change once news starts coming out of them and maybe somebody finds it. But you're talking about collectors that lived in those countries that have collected for 30, 40, 50 years, and they've only been able to find 1 or 2.
Right.
So
chances
are
rare is rare, I guarantee you. What criteria does Heritage have for degree to provide for special label collections like the Pennyworth Black Cat? That's a very difficult question. It comes from how valuable the collection is, what we determine with our consigners. And so the Black Cat
and how the collection was made.
And how the collection was made. So the Black Cat collection, for example, I can answer because I helped bring it in. It was very well known on social media. A lot of people knew about it.
And he already
called it the Black Cat collection. So it was very easy for me to say, hey, we're going to get this label for it, and we're going to dub it the Black Cat Collection. And we do this a lot. We do title things.
We get a sticker, so
Right,
because
we get a sticker.
we can't. So pedigree rules for CGC are very, very strict.
Correct.
And one of the things is that I think it's the cutoff. The books have to be from 1970 or older, or 60 and older.
So the rules are, there are three major rules. The rules are, you had to have collected every single book off the newsstands
yourself.
That's one.
That's the major rule.
That's the major rule. It cannot have passed through. You couldn't have bought it as back issues.
Yeah.
Number two, there has to be over 1,000 books. Number three, it has to be anywhere from 1940 to 1969.
So
it can go up into the 70s, but the main books have to be Silver Age or Gold Age.
So if you have, because this happens a lot, we have a lot of collectors that started collecting late 60s, 70s, and 80s. And they'll have pristine, like the Oregon Coast collection.
Sure.
It's a great collection, but CGC will not pedigree it. So what we do is we'll call it a certain name, and it will be called a name collection. Maybe in the future, when CGC's rules change for pedigrees or the dates change, that might be a consideration. And since these books are already stickered, it will be easier to create that pedigree.
Right.
But for particular collections, like we were saying, it has to kind of already be famous or some other thing. It would fall into the criteria of a pedigree, but it is not a pedigree because of CGC's rules. So certain things.
So
like that.
In answer to your question, call us and we can discuss it. We want to know. I mean, listen, if you've got 1960s, medium to high grade Silver Age, you should be talking to us. We could name something like that if there's a reason for us to do so. It doesn't necessarily add value. So it's a misconception to think that every named thing is a big deal. There's a very important reason the Pennyworth collection was named the way it was, because everybody knew about that collection. They knew that it was super high grade.
They knew
some of the highest grade.
They knew it was stolen.
They knew it was stolen. They knew it was recovered, but it was also the #1 registry in Batman on the CGC census. That also had a big part to play in it. Yeah. The Black Cat collection was another one. The Black Cat collection was one of the highest grades of all the pre-code horror books, of the major hard ones to find, all put together in the same place. Now there are other collections out there that are better, but at the time of bringing it in, there wasn't anything close to like that on the market, and that's why you saw prices rise. That's why we named it that way. Those are important, and so we can do the same thing for you. We just want to have a reason to do so. We don't just do it for collections that come out of the closet. The Oregon Coast was a great one.
Oregon Coast. It was a Bronze Age to modern collection that was
impeccable.
Again, very, very high grade. Owner bought it off the shelves, more than 1,000 books. So it would have been pedigree if it was older, but since it's newer, we named it the collection. So
we hope that answered the question. Yeah. I try not to dance around questions, and I find myself dancing around questions. So, any other questions out there real fast? I mean, we've had a few. That's great. That means people are watching. I'm happy.
Yeah.
No? Okay. So I'm going to move on. I'm bringing out, I do like this book. I've always liked an FF5.
But it's gone nuts.
It has gone crazy. This book is the second most valuable book in the FF run. And it's really close to the #1.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's almost the most valuable book in the run nowadays. And that, to me, is insanity. But people like Dr. Doom.
That's to show you
that'll show you what the best villain
can do. Yeah.
So I help bring that specific book in, so I get to push it a little bit. But at the same time, it doesn't really need any pushing. It's an FF5. So I've always wanted one. Never gonna get one now.
And we just sold a foreign FF5 in the signature auction, graded an 8 for 15 grand. Which you'd think, oh, an 8, 15 grand, that's a deal. But it was a La Prensa, which is the Mexican edition. Right. So. 10% of what the U.S. version would go for, but it's still, I think it has a lot of room to grow.
And a lot less of those than the American version, for sure. The next book, you're going to laugh at me. I never would have bought this. I'm not a big Dell and Gold.
Oh,
Key
it's a
fan.
9.8 though.
But
Oh,
yeah,
that's why.
that's the reason I bought it.
Okay.
I'm not a big Dell and Gold Key fan. Okay, so I do like Bugs Bunny. I'm a big Bugs Bunny fan. I am, however, not a Barbie and Ken fan.
I'm sure not. I'm
just
sure
saying.
Sure.
I'm not. Shut up.
Sure. You're buying that one.
I am not. I'm not bidding on this. However, let's face it. This is a 9.8.
That's crazy.
From 1963. Of all things, you want to talk about hard books to find? Try and find a run of these in 9.8.
Oh, try to
find any of them and Dell in 19 and
make a run of Dell. Just not even a 9.8. Just make a run of Dell.
Just make a run of So I'm telling you, if you like Dell and Gold Key, or you're trying to put together some 4 colors, or you're trying to put, oh my God, this Barbie and Ken collection, 9.8. Wow. That is rare. Tommy, can you bring that back up and show me the census? It's got to be low. There's no way. That is the only one. I do know that, but I'm curious as to what the census says. Keep going. No, you can do it. Keep going.
Uh-oh. Technical difficulties. It wouldn't be our show if it didn't have at least one technical difficulty.
I blame X. He's cursed. Oh, well. Okay, well, anyway, if you guys look at it, we're back. Go into the census. There are 25 total on the census, and that's the highest grade. 296s. That's insanity. That's crazy. Think about that. I mean, it's hard enough getting them, but then finding one of the highest one, not to mention the only highest
the highest graded, yeah. The sole highest graded.
What more do you want? If you're collecting that, like I said, I would never typically bring it, but you can't ignore a 9.8 when you see it, of a book that you never see in
or if you're a Barbie collector.
Or if you're a Barbie collector. Hey, collect what you love. Don't listen to him.
I know you have some Barbies.
I do not. I will hit you with a Sandman or an Adventure 60. Don't make me. So the next thing I brought was an Adventure Comics 60. I actually like this cover. It's a cool cover.
Is that a Flaisel cover? Does it say on the
says
cover?
Gardner Fox.
Okay.
And Howard Purcell stories. It is a Flaisel cover.
Oh, see, I like Flaisel's Sandman. He has one of my favorite is. And I have a friend that has an actual Fleisel recreation of this in watercolor, of him jumping over the wooden fence and gassing the bad guy on the other side.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the colors on this are absolutely unbelievable. At a 6.5, this book is from 1941. That's what I'm saying. Look at the reds.
Yeah.
Look at the reds and the yellows, and they're not muted at all. They haven't faded over time. This is an absolutely gorgeous book, and the reason I brought it, you guys should be looking at this. I would want that if I were collecting Sandman Adventures. And then the last one I brought was the heavy hitter, was the first appearance of Black Canary, the Flash Comics 86.
Dinosaur
and
cover.
Again, dinosaur cover of all things, bondage cover no less. Bondage in the lower right corner, and then it's a 3.5, so it's a solid book. And first appearance of Black Canary with a bondage cover. I mean, what more do you want? And again, the colors are nice on this. It's not.
Look at those greens.
The greens are nice. The yellows make it pop. It's a beautiful book. Again, what would Wiedman want? If I were still collecting comics, I wouldn't be crying about that. Now listen, the comic auction just started yesterday, so don't be fooled by the low numbers. They will get where they need to go.
It's not like the comic art that's ending today. So.
That kind of brings a good point. I tell people, don't watch the auction for the first 4 days. Please, for the love of God, you're going to give yourself and me a heart attack, because you're going to come.
Consigner. Don't watch.
If you're a consigner, don't watch the auction for the first 4 days.
Until the last days.
Please. You're going to give yourself a heart attack, and then you're going to call me and freak me out.
Everybody always freaks out.
Books get where they need to go.
Yes.
They will get where they need to go, but nobody in their right mind shows their cards to you while you're playing poker, right? So why would you think that the bidding is going to go up early? It's not. People are going to wait because they don't want to tip their hand as to how high they're going to go. So don't be surprised if it stays artificially low for a long time, and then the weekend of or
the day of it just jumps.
It'll jump like crazy. It always does. So now I guess we're on to our sneak peeks. Yes.
For the signature
sneak
auction.
peeks. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
No, you can go first.
Okay.
Since you have, you can do one and I'll do one, and then you can do the last. Or you're going to do them together?
I'll do them both. I'll do them together.
Okay.
Oh, cool. There's something on the back of this. Yeah. So for my sneak peeks, I just happened to get some Frazetta pieces in.
2 Frazetta.
2 Frazetta Johnny Comets. And I thought you guys would like to see them. So we were kind of talking about cross-hatching, and we were talking about, all the detail. And these are by Frank Frazetta. And look at all the detail he did in his hair, in his eyes, in the face, all these details.
Look at the brickwork on
I mean, it's unbelievable. And to me, I'm not a Frank Frazetta oil fan person. No. I don't like him that much. Although I do have to say that Warlord of Mars piece that we had, that was unbelievable. But I like his comic art much better.
His line work.
Because I love his line work. When we had the Famous Funnies cover a bunch of years ago, if I had $1 million, it was mine. There was nobody that was ever going to outbid me on that. I would have owned it. No, it went for $500,000. It would have been mine.
That person that won it, I think.
No, I would have. It would have been mine. That's.
I think you would have had to knock that person out of the computer.
I wouldn't.
So they wouldn't have kept on hitting that bid button.
It is. I don't know what more to say about that other than that.
It's beautiful.
That was the most beautiful thing I've ever held. And like I said, I don't like Frazetta oils, but his comic art is beyond compare as far as I'm concerned. I mean, even the details in the pillows here and stuff like that.
And the use of light with the shadows of their body and the shadow making the trees in the background. So
right. And so these are going to be in our signature sale, and the deadline is this week, this Friday. So if you've got high value items that you need to get in that sale, you need to contact us like now. Yesterday, because we need to know and we need to get these items in the sale. But there's always a sale in January too. We can always work with you. But these made it in on time, and the consignor is going to be happy because, hey, they're Frazetta. Who doesn't like Frazetta?
And this has made it on time, and it's going to be also in the signature floor. And this is an Elseworld, which I know you don't like what ifs, but I love what ifs.
I don't like what ifs, but I can appreciate the art.
So, and this is Jerry Bingham's Batman as Green Lantern cover in The Darkest Night, which is a great play on both The Dark Knight Batman and the saying that the Green Lanterns have in The Darkest Night and the Bright. So again, a beautiful piece. If I'm not mistaken, it's oil with acrylic touches, and just a beautiful painted piece that you don't get to see. It's been in the artist's collection since he made it, and now it's going up to public auction for the first time ever. So again, any Batman or Green Lantern fan would love this. Any Elseworld or whatever
piece. It's a great
and it's a very memorable story as well. So,
is it?
Yeah.
I don't like what ifs.
I'm not a big fan. You should try them.
I'm not a big fan of what ifs because my brain is very linear. It needs to stick on.
Superman
that
Red Sun.
Didn't happen.
Superman Red Sun.
So, well, I mean, I'm not saying they're not good stories. I'm just saying my brain can't tolerate them. It doesn't like it. What can I say? It's not my fault.
So
it's how I was made.
Again, the Frazettas and this piece and other pieces will be in the November auction.
The amount of I just brought in 5 covers. I brought in the Flash 232, 233 cover. I brought in the Thor 170 cover today. That blew my mind. Yeah. It's absolutely gorgeous. So those are, I mean, I would have brought those for sneak peeks, but they got to get entered into the auction. That's how new they are. I just brought them in today. I actually picked them up. That was a shocker, absolute shocker. So you can't even imagine the stuff that gets dumped on us, I guess I should say. It's not really dumping, but people, you don't know where things are going to come from.
And where it's found or where it just comes out of anywhere.
It's incredible.
Yes. And I'm pretty sure that's been in that person's collection from a convention back in the day.
If you knew what the prices were on the back of them, like $35, $15. There was one cover for $15. There was another cover for $40. There was another for $25. He's had them forever. Yeah. So I mean, can you imagine paying that for a cover right now? You couldn't pay that for any cover in the world. You couldn't pay that for a Harvey cover of Casper that only showed Casper's
head. I couldn't get the money out fast enough.
I know. It's insane. So Well, that's it for us.
That's-
We do appreciate you joining us. Thank you for the questions. Anybody else have any more? That's what we're here for.
And if anybody has anything else to say, again, after this, comments or email us directly. It's or Instagram.
Instagram at
So-
Heritage Comics Creator. That's what we're all here for. So if there's nothing and nobody, I'm Brian Wiedman.
And I'm Xavier Chavez.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Have a good one.
Take care.